Welcome to Brave Together Parenting, an empowering and truly helpful podcast for the parents of children with disabilities and all unique needs.
I will say that one of the most common things I hear in my practice coaching families is that there is a concern, like, what's going to happen when I'm gone? And I mean, that comes up pretty much in every session that I have with parents. And it's probably one of the first things they talk about in terms of we're so worried about our child's future. How can we, set things up to help them, thrive as much as possible when we are not here. So
yeah,
I'm wondering, specifically along that vein, if, a parent is coming to you for the first time, like maybe they recently got a diagnosis, they're deer in the headlight, what would you suggest that we start looking at?
So the first thing is we want to put some things in place to provide a framework for now, for 10 or 15 years down the road, while we're still alive and as our child's growing and going through their services. And then for that next longer term stage, when after we pass away. So understanding where families are with their current financial situation, what their assets look like. We recommend for all of our families, neurotypical or neurodiverse, all families, if they have any assets at all, to consider having a trust, a family trust. And especially if there's a special needs component, we want to have a special needs trust in place. And the difference between a will and a trust, a will may give some information of how you'd like assets to be disposed, if you will, but it doesn't really avoid probate. So if you pass away with a will, you still have to go through the court system to make sure that the will is handled in the appropriate manner. A trust, on the other hand, and by the way, we recommend having both together, but the trust is really a protective entity that it's almost as if it's a separate entity altogether from individuals. And so the idea of moving all of your assets into your trust, first of all, it protects from lawsuits and creditors and a bunch of other things, but it also avoids probate. So after you pass away, the trust lays out the details, all the things that are in the will, but has the entity of protection that makes sure that, folks have laid it all out and don't have to go through the court system, so it can be handled immediately. So having a trust is an absolute first thing to look at. And then again, depending on the assets, understanding what assets, because you're going to want to fund a trust in some way, whether it's with cash or stock investments, any of those types of things, but also life insurance as a component so that when I pass away, the proceeds of my life insurance go into the trust and can fund the things that are required for my child. So it's really sort of a hand in hand. They don't have to be done at the same time. It's often helpful, but the process can take a little bit of time. But trusts and special needs trusts don't take very long. We have a lot of resources that we refer people to in order to get their trust put together. And so those are the very first things, right? Those immediately give peace of mind. My assets are protected, and I've got a plan for when, as we say all the time, when I exist in memory only, after we pass away.
Yes, right.
Those are the immediate, like first things that we look at taking care of.
Thanks so much for listening today. Do us a favor and leave us a review and a rating so that this podcast can get into the ears and the hearts of more and more moms. Did you know that Brave Together Parenting podcast is an extension of our nonprofit organization, We Are Brave Together? We Are Brave Together serves an international community of caregiving moms, offering support groups that are virtual and in-person, educational resources, and low-cost weekend retreats. And we have published our first anthology of caregiving stories entitled Becoming Brave Together, Heroic, Extraordinary Caregiving Stories from Mothers Hidden in Plain Sight. It will encourage and validate every parent caregiver. To join us today, go to wearebravetogether.org. Our support and sisterhood awaits you. Brave Together Parenting Podcast is for entertainment and education purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional care and should not be relied on for medical or mental health advice. The use of any content on our podcast, links, show notes, or on our website is to be done at your own personal risk. Please seek out a professional to assess your own medical or mental health concerns, because we are all beautifully complex and the content of this podcast is for a broad audience.